Hello everyone, my name's Ling and I'm from China. I was part of the biggest rebel group, the Crows, and it was our goal to take down the cruel Emperor Zhang. He was the meanest ruler you could ever imagine. He spat on the poor, stole whatever he wanted, and never gave back to the people. It was my job to infiltrate his place and find evidence for what would bring Emperor Zhang down for good. I walked onto the street of the bustling marketplace, dressed in the prettiest Shangsam dress I could find. This was the only day Emperor Zhang would be taking a stroll through the village marketplace for at least another year. I couldn't blow this opportunity. Sure enough, I started to hear guards and loud voices down the street as Emperor Zhang and his guards forced their way through the crowds of people. "Make way, peasants!" I readied myself. Then, just as they were passing by, I walked over and pretended to fall in front of them. "Oh, excuse me, Your Highness." I looked up, batting my eyes at the Emperor. "Oh!" Emperor Zhang smiled like an old creep and helped me to my feet. "Aren't you a pretty little thing?" I shivered inwardly and forced a smile. "Why, thank you, Your Highness. You're not so bad yourself." "Oh, what is your name, miss?" "May." "May, where do you come from?" I looked down, faking nervousness. "Well, I have no family. I've been trying to earn money in this village, but no one will hire me. I work very hard and—" "Why, come to my palace. We could use some beauty for a change." He leaned in to whisper, "Let me tell you, the other maids at my place are stupid old hags. We would love to have you." I tried to stop myself from punching him right in his bearded chin. "Of course, thank you." "Wei," an advisor rushed forward. "Sort out having May join our palace maid service." "Of course." Emperor Zhang then left without another word, while I watched him leave. His advisor quickly wrote down a note of instructions on how to get to the palace and when I would begin. Then he left too. I watched them turn the corner when Liu, my partner rebel member, suddenly appeared. "Well done!" He clapped me on the back. "Thanks, but the hard part isn't over yet." "No, you're right," Liu grinned. "But the fun part is just beginning too." A week later, I arrived at the Emperor's palace. It was a giant fortress of stone and red tiles. Truly beautiful. But I knew the Emperor had to perform a lot of evil to build this giant palace. I walked in, got through the guards with my papers, and went over to the servants' quarters, way at the back of the palace. This part of the building was not nearly as extravagant or luxurious. It was quite dirty, to be honest. "Here." My supervisor handed me a list of chores. "Complete them by today, or you won't get any dinner." I nodded, then looked down. I groaned. There was so much to do. I wouldn't have any time to do some snooping to find evidence against the Emperor. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Later, I was at the entrance to the palace, repainting the columns with red paint. But it had to be done if I had any hope of taking the Emperor down. "What are you doing, imbecile?" I spun around. My supervisor was storming towards me with a look that could kill. "What? You're using the wrong shade of red!" "The wrong shade? But this is the only one that was there. Please." She grabbed the bucket from my hands and dumped it all over me. I screamed as paint got into my eyes. "You stupid girl! Why, I oughta—" "What's going on here?" I couldn't see anything through the red paint, but I thought I heard my supervisor back away quickly. "Oh, you're—" "How dare you treat this innocent woman this way?" "I'm sorry." "Go on. You can leave us. I'll handle this." Of course, of course." My supervisor scampered away as I heard the man approach me. "Miss, are you okay?" He sounded so gentle. I heard movement and suddenly I could see clearly. He had wiped away the paint from my eyes with his shirt. I gasped when I finally saw him. He was so handsome and he looked so concerned. "Come, let's get you cleaned up." The man led me outside to a well and pumped up some water so I could wash off the paint. When I had fully cleaned myself, the man couldn't stop staring at me. "What is it?" The man shook his head, looking away. Was he blushing? "Oh, nothing. It's just, you're beautiful." I felt my knees tremble. Had he really just said that? "What's your name?" I hesitated, biting back my words. I was about to say my real name. I couldn't let myself blow my cover so easily. "May." "Li Mei?" No, just May." "Oh, well, nice to meet you, May." "Nice to meet you too. Nianzu." "Nice to meet you, Nianzu." We stood there just staring for a while. It was really quite strange when Nianzu finally spoke. "Listen, May, do you want to meet again sometime?" "Are you asking me out on a date?" Nianzu blushed. I was embarrassed by my bluntness, but I was just so shocked.
Well, yes, actually. What do you say?
I should have said no. This wasn't part of the mission, but for some reason I said yes.
Great. Shall we meet in the garden tomorrow? Let's say at midday?
I nodded. Again, why didn't I say no then?
Perfect. See you then, May.
He left, while I was too stunned to move. The next day, I showed up in the palace gardens at midday during my lunch break. I shouldn't have showed up, and yet, there I was. What was wrong with me? The bell struck, signaling midday, and still Nyanzu hadn't showed up. I was a fool. I should just leave. I turned around to head back to my room when I stopped in my tracks. There he was. When I saw him, I began to understand why I'd agreed to meet him. He was so handsome, and his smile, it made my heart melt.
Good day, May.
Hello, Nyanzu. We strolled through the gardens for a while, enjoying each other's company and chatting for a while. Nyanzu seemed like the perfect man. He was kind, funny, handsome. I was starting to lose track of the real reason why I was here. There was one moment, though, that was kind of strange. I was asking him about his job. So, what do you do here at this palace? Nyanzu looked away.
I'm one of the lower food catering managers.
Oh, I see. Why did he seem suddenly nervous? But I just decided to brush the thought away. But there was something else that happened that was pretty strange. As we were walking, I noticed everyone else in the garden staring at us a lot. Why would they be staring at a maid and some low-level food manager like Nyanzu? It didn't make much sense. But again, I brushed the thought aside. How I wish I'd paid more attention to it all. We made it to the outskirts of the garden, where there was no one around. Nyanzu walked over to a bush and picked a rose for me.
Here, a pretty rose for a beautiful woman.
I accepted it, and I don't know what came over me. I leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. He blushed like crazy, and I'm pretty sure I was blushing like crazy too.
Do you want to meet tonight at the lake?
Oh, but of course, perhaps at 7?
Sounds good.
I smiled and we parted ways. As I headed back to my room, I heard psst. Suddenly, I spotted Liu. I forgot to mention, while I had managed to infiltrate the palace as a maid, Liu had become a gardener as well. Liu waved me over. Hi, Liu.
What are you doing?
Huh?
Why are you hanging around with that man?
I blushed. Liu, don't worry about that. It's all a part of the plan.
Why would you?
Just leave it, okay? Liu snapped his mouth shut. He looked hurt.
Fine, whatever. Just remember why we're here.
You don't think I know? I rolled my eyes and stormed off, but I knew Liu was right. Despite all of this, that night I still showed up at the lake. Nyanzu and I had the most romantic evening. He took me out on the boat and we drifted off underneath the moonlight.
May, is it just me, or does it feel like we were destined to meet?
I glanced at him. I feel the same way. I was shocked by my words, but I realized it was the truth. Suddenly, I felt his hand on mine. It was the most romantic thing I'd ever experienced. Later, we docked the boat back on land and we said goodbye.
I'll see you soon.
We hugged and he left. I was about to turn to head back home when Liu suddenly appeared again out of the darkness.
May!
No! Liu, you gotta stop doing that.
Why were you kissing that man?
Oh, Liu, can't you see? I'm getting closer to finding the Emperor's secrets now more than ever.
How?
Through Nyanzu.
That man? How is he so important? What is his job? May?
He's a food manager.
What? You're doing all this for some lowly food manager? That won't help us take down the Emperor.
Quiet down, someone will hear you.
May, you're not doing this for the mission. You're doing this for your own selfish heart. And you shouldn't even be with him. You should,
Liu trailed off.
Look, it doesn't matter. Just stick to the mission, all right?
I sighed. Liu was right. I've been here a week and found nothing so far. Okay, Liu, I promise I'll focus. Tonight, I'll sneak into the Emperor's office. I promise I won't let you down.
Good. Your country depends on you.
Liu left and I took a deep breath, suddenly anxious. It was time to get to business. That very night, I sneaked through the palace, making use of my maid attire to get past guards and the other people walking by, though there weren't that many this late at night. Finally, I made it to the Emperor's personal office. 2 guards were at the door. Instead, I climbed around the outer wall and through the window. It was almost too easy. Inside, I sifted through all the drawers until I came upon a file labeled with the words, List of Assassinated Rebels. I gasped. This was it. This was the evidence we needed that could bring down Emperor Zhang. Once the people saw how he had been killing innocent people just to maintain his rule, they would fight back against him. I reached out for the file, but right at that moment, the door to the office opened. Someone was entering. It was too late. I couldn't grab the file, so I just hid beneath the desk. I couldn't see who it was, but suddenly I heard a voice that I immediately recognized as Emperor Zhang.
"Come here, son. Let me show you today's trading report." "Yes, father."
I gasped. That voice. I would recognize it anywhere. That was Nianzu's voice, which meant... No, it couldn't be. Nianzu was the Emperor's son? While they talked, I prayed to God they wouldn't come by to sit by the desk. They would instantly find me. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, and there was Nianzu. He went to open a drawer and made eye contact with me.
"Nianzu, what's taking you so long?"
I silently pleaded to Nianzu. Would he turn me in?
Nothing, father."
Nianzu opened the door, grabbed whatever he needed, and handed it over to the Emperor.
"Why don't you head off first? I'll catch up. I just need to fill in some more reports. I won't be long." "Well, okay, son. I'll see you later."
The door closed, and it was just me and Nianzu left. I left my hiding spot and grabbed the file that could be used against the Emperor. Nianzu approached me.
"What are you doing here?"
I hesitated. Should I tell him the truth or make up an excuse? I'm part of the rebels. I came here to gather evidence that could dethrone Emperor Zhang. Nianzu just looked at me.
"Oh,
Why didn't you tell me you were the Emperor's son?
because I didn't want you to treat me differently."
Seriously? Hey now, you lied about your identity too. Listen, Nianzu, your father, he's a terrible person. He kills, steals, lies.
"I know."
I froze. You do?
"Of course I do. You don't think I know? I'm the leader of your rebel group, the Crows."
My mouth dropped. You are?
"Yes, I knew we were sending someone to the palace to infiltrate it, but I didn't know it was you."
Wow, well that's perfect then.
"What do you mean?"
We can leave and...
"I can't leave the palace. I have to stay here so I can keep track of my father's evil schemes."
But...
"You wretched being!"
We gasped as the door was flung open and the Emperor, followed by his group of guards, burst in.
"I suspected you were working against me." "Father,
The Emperor turned to me.
I never should have trusted you. You bewitched me with your beauty."
I was still confused. How had the Emperor known? Why had he returned to his office? How did you know we were in here? The Emperor paused, then smiled evilly.
"Oh, that?"
He pointed behind him.
"Your friend helped me out with that."
The guard shoved Liu in front. Liu looked so guilty.
"Your friend was very eager to tell me about you."
Liu, how could you? Liu looked so sad.
"Because I'm in love with you."
What?
"You shouldn't be with him, Ling. You should be with me."
But why would you betray me?
"You were getting too close to Nianzu. My plan was to turn you in, then break you out of prison, and we could start again. We can defeat the Emperor again, but you cannot fall in love with Nianzu."
I was too stunned to speak, but I felt Nianzu grab hold of my hand.
"Sorry, mister, but I'm in love with Mei. Well, I'm assuming her real name is Ling. And if you'll have me, Ling, would you?"
I was torn. So much had transpired in such a short amount of time. But when I looked into Nianzu's eyes, I knew what I had to do. Of course. Love you. Nianzu beamed. Suddenly, Emperor Zhang shrieked.
"Seize them!"
Nianzu and I nodded at each other, then the battle began. We fought the Emperor's guards in an epic kung fu battle. I kicked one of his guards in the chest, sending him flying back like a bowling pin, knocking out the other guards and Liu in the process. Nianzu dealt with the remaining guards. Then he called me over to the windowsill.
"No, get back here!"
I turned around, gave Liu one last glance, then grabbed hold of Nianzu. He took a firm grip of one of the lanterns attached to the rope hanging outside, and we ziplined down the rope all the way to the ground. We ran away as fast as we could, the file of evidence still in my hands, and left the palace behind us. We will be back, one day, and Emperor Zhang will face the force of justice. Force of justice. Force of